Accounting professionals are often unaware that their accounts payable staff has a whole slew of unspoken headaches. These are often created by suppliers, other employees, and sometimes managers. These folks seem to forget that accounts payable simply administers the policy mandated by management. They don't set the policy. Stick around until the end when we discuss two of the most upsetting and potentially costly issues of them all. Hi, guys. Welcome. I'm Mary Schaefer, founder of AP Now, the place where you go for all the latest business intelligence you need if you work in, have responsibility for, or manage the accounts payable function. Today, we're going to look at some of the more common aggravations that the unsung heroes in the accounts payable department deal with day in and day out. Aggravation number one, if you will, having to explain to management why they made a duplicate payment, despite the fact that that very same manager approved that second invoice for payment, and sometimes they even demanded a rush payment. And then when it comes back that the vendor played some games or for some other reason the invoice got paid twice, they're furious with their accounts payable staff. That's not really fair. Rarely is it the accounts payable staff's fault that the payment got made. Occasionally it is, I'll grant you that, but don't forget also, everybody makes a mistake once in a while. Next issue that causes a lot of aggravation, and many outside accounts payable are not aware of it, is the time it takes to resolve a discrepant invoice. Okay, and part of the reason that it takes so long for accounts payable to resolve these discrepancies is they don't get cooperation from the purchasing staff, they don't get cooperation from the supplier, and they need input from both of those people usually to resolve any of these discrepancies. Aggravation number three, dealing with employees who continually request rush payments, and these rush payments are not due to unexpected emergencies, which is going to happen to everybody from time to time, but rather inaction on their part. So the purchasing person, I always pick on purchasing, it's probably not fair, but for this example, the purchasing person sat on an invoice, didn't review it, and then all of a sudden it's past due and they're down demanding a rush payment. It's going to happen occasionally to everybody, but when it happens more than occasionally, it creates a lot of additional work, and that time adds up, and it makes the accounts payable department less efficient than it should. Okay. Along the same lines, aggravation number four is dealing with employees who turn in their expense reports at the very last minute and then demand payments. So they may, for example, know that their credit card bill is due tomorrow. Let's say tomorrow's Friday, and here we are Thursday afternoon at 3:00, and they're down, jumping up and down in accounts payable, demanding that they cut a check for them. If they had looked at the expense report and turned it in a more timely manner, they would have gotten their check and been able to pay the credit card bill. So that creates problems and it creates tension for the accounts payable staff. Okay. Along the same lines are those employees who put in an expense report and include on it reimbursement for things that are not allowed by the company policy. And sometimes these things are just plain crazy. And then when the staff who's reviewing the expense reports before paying out on them, typically in a company that will be the accounts payable department, unless you're a very big company. But anyway, when they refuse the reimbursement, then the employee gets mad at the accounts payable staff, or when in actuality, all that person was doing their job. Okay. And again, implementing the policy that was set by management. Okay. Next aggravation, and this is a huge one, and we've just gone through it this year, and it shows no sign of abating, and that is getting 1099s out the door every year accurately, given the fact that the IRS continually changes the rules and changes the due dates. And in fact, what we've seen in the last few years is when these due dates get changed, the time frames are made shorter and shorter. So you may remember 2 or 3 years ago, I don't remember exactly. First, we had the 1099 MISC with Box 7 income paid to non-employee independent contractors, etc., due on January 31st at the IRS. Then they came out with the new form, and now there are already rumors that there'll be some more changes in this light in the next year. Okay, so not so easy to get those 1099s out accurately. You'd think it would be, but it's not. And so a lot of aggravation, a lot of stress in the accounts payable department, especially those organizations that have a fiscal year end of December 31st. So then the accounts payable staff is dealing with the year-end close, which is always a treat, as well as getting 1099s out. Okay, along the same line. And this is a problem I'm happy to say is diminishing somewhat, but it's still out there. And that is getting W-9s from vendors who don't want to provide them. Today, most vendors, but not all, understand that they need to give the 1099. We used to hear the old phrase, vendors would complain, contractors would complain, well, if I give you the 1099, you're going to report this income to the IRS. And the answer to that question is, that's precisely correct. That is what we are legally obligated to do. But still, some vendors will push back and they won't want to give the W-9 because they know you're going to report the income to the IRS. And, my answer to that, I'm trying to be a little bit polite, but it's too bad. That's what legally we're required to do. And by refusing to give the W-9, basically they're asking your employees to break the law. And that's not fair. Okay. Before we get into the last two issues that could cost your organization quite a bit, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to this channel by hitting the subscribe button. It's free, completely private, and you can unsubscribe at any time. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can hit that bell next to the subscribe button so you'll be notified when we post new content, which we do usually 2 times a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And for the next few weeks, we're posting, are you ready for this? Wordle, content about Wordle on Saturday mornings. Best of all, if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe with a Gmail account. You don't have to have a YouTube account. All right. Aggravation number 8 is dealing with suppliers who refuse to follow the guidelines, and they do things that create a lot of extra work. Some of those things might be sending multiple copies of invoices, sending invoices to the wrong place, making false claims, saying, oh, purchasing told me you'd pay me early, etc. Or they get other employees within the organization to make promises on behalf of the work that the accounts payable staff does, and then they can't honor those promises, and there's a whole bunch of unhappy people. And that, depending upon the nature of your business and your company, it can be a little problem or it can be a huge problem, especially if the supplier that's creating all the havoc is a key supplier. All right. And the last one, and this, oh my goodness, cross your fingers, is the vigilance, the amount of vigilance that is required today. It is a lot more than it was 5 to 10 years ago that's needed to weed out fraudulent emails that are trying to trick your staff into paying somebody for something that they shouldn't. It can either be a crook or scammer who is impersonating one of your vendors or trying to impersonate your CFO. There's all sorts of scams going on now. We have some other videos on this, and you can watch or listen to them if you want. Can you think of anything that I've missed? Any aggravation that your AP staff has to deal with, or if you're an AP that you have to deal with on a regular basis? If so, you can indicate that in the comment field, or you can email me at publisher@ap-now.com. I love to hear from people. These issues, by the way, are just the tip of the iceberg, representative of all the different areas you need to know if you work in the accounts payable function. These were discussed in some detail in episode 115 on YouTube. A link will appear to the left. And as always, I greatly appreciate your thumbs up, your comments, and your shares.